Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities that he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight on the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Sojourner Truth Memorial. And who is Sojourner Truth?
Alright, the Sojourner Truth Memorial is devoted to Sojourner Truth. A person named Isabella Bonfrey came up from New York into Connecticut and to Northampton, Massachusetts. And she had changed her name in Connecticut to Sojourner Truth because she thought she was on a religious quest. Sojourner means travels through, and truth is to find the truth. And she was a black woman that was born as a slave, and at some point in her life she gained her freedom. And she came to Northampton to join a group, I think it was the Nantucket Silk Company, but back there I think it's the Northampton Silk Association. And it was a communal group running the silk mill together, trying to be a communal society. It only lasted for maybe 7 years or so before it collapsed. But her stay in Northampton was about 9 years, and she became very famous nationwide because she was one of the few black women that would advocate for freedom of all blacks. And she wanted the people's African-American lives to get better and better. Right? So Northampton had this woman lived there in the community or neighborhood of Florence. And today we're going to tell you about the memorial, and we're also going to tell you about interesting places around this memorial. And and then also tell you about, there's actually a tour already made that includes her memorial statue, but it's all the neighborhood around there, because her house is there, and the Silk Association, now a silk mill, is also there. And so some group made a trail.
And tell us about the Sojourner Truth Memorial in Northampton.
All right, so if you go to the Florence section of Northampton, there's going to be a very beautiful triangle. And in that triangle, which used to be a park, it's now turned into the Sojourner Truth Memorial Site. And it has 3 plaques and a gorgeous statue. The statue is on a nice base, but the statue itself is what is quite gorgeous. And it seems to be made out of mostly copper. It's hard to tell. But around there are 3 plaques, and it describes the information I just told you about. She was born in 1797, and she ended up having 5 kids herself. And then when slavery ended in New York State in 1827, she went to New York City. She just went to, after that, Connecticut. She ended, and eventually went to Northampton. And that Northampton Silk Association started going downhill. She stayed for a few more years after that. But she had a neighbor of hers that could read and write, where Sojourner Truth could not read or write. So she had the neighbor write down her story of her life. And that book is called The Narrative of Sojourner Truth, published in 1850. And she had a beautiful life. She was a great speaker. And she used that to her advantage. She moved out to Battle Creek, Michigan in 1857, and she kept giving speeches about how black people should become totally free. Not just in the northern states, but throughout the United States. Remember, this is the 1840s and 50s, and through her advocacy, and of course many other people, it became true the Civil War should be called the war to end slavery, and finally the slaves were freed up. All right, so that's the story of her life and what she did. And there are better places to read about her life, including her book, but also biographies about her.
And quickly, before we continue with our interview, just to fill our listeners in, to find out more information or if you're interested in signing up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at hoyokecanaltour.org. And there you can also find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214 at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the interesting places around this memorial park.
All right, her house is up the street. It's very easy to find. There's no sign memorializing it, but if you look at my website, it gives the address there. And it's across the street from the Park Street Cemetery, and that too is interesting to find. Now, her home wasn't found until about 15 to 20 years ago. Someone found the address and said that's not what it should have looked like. And they figured out that her house was built around after she left it, and so it lost its look. They did have a picture of it, and they ended up figuring out that it was surrounded by new renovations. That's great. Also in that area is the former Florence School, but most importantly near that triangle is the Florence Congregational Church, made in 1861. It's a very gorgeous looking church made of wood. It has a very unique Romanesque look to most of it, and it has beautiful trim, white wood, but then brown trim around the whole of it, including onto its steeple. So it's nicely made. Then down a side street is the Florence Silk Mill, called the Nonotuck Silk Mill, which was a very big mill. It employed almost all the people in Florence. And down another street, about a third of a mile away, is actually the center of Florence itself. So you can really go to this neighborhood and investigate all around you very easily.
And another group has made tours in this area. Tell us about their tours.
Okay, now I was surprised how good they were, and so I want you to go to my webpage and connect off to their page and go on some of these tours. They're so well made. There's paper handout and a map with it that you can get, or you can just go on the website and it's simple. Go to my website and go on the tours, and they have it all numbered out for you, where you visit all the sites I've been telling you about, plus many more. And they mostly have to do with Sojourner Truth herself, where she lived, worked, where she might have gone off to the library, where her book might have been written. Now, she's not buried in Florence. She's buried out in Battle Creek, so that's one important thing. But the back of the Park Street Cemetery has a place for African American burials, and about 5 of them have stones. So it's very good to go in there and read the stones. Some of the stones say that this person was a black person or African American person, and they lived in this neighborhood a long time. So it's good to read that kind of cultural statements. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And of course, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out his tours and podcasts at his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you for tuning in.